Okay, I did it. And as a complete unprofessional, I didn't even bother with like the splash screen or
You didn't do the splash?
No, I didn't do it. Here, you want to let's just go. Let's see.
Let's
go like
show them the
this.
splash, Brad.
Let's go like this for a second. See, this
Here
is
you
the
are.
show that we're doing. This is like we talk about stuff.
The stuff is here.
It's a totally professionally made thumbnail that I definitely didn't make in Adobe Spark in like 45 seconds.
Brad, the people just want the stuff, right? What they want is they want this and they want that. They want the stuff.
Yeah. And last week, there was only one thing. It wasn't even really stuff. It was like just a thing that we talked about.
Yes. We talked about a thing. A lot of other things around it.
Sure. Some people yelled at me in the chat. It was great.
What people wanted, Brad, I feel like in the chat, people were like, not prove to me something, but people really wanted, they almost wanted you to challenge either their belief systems or they wanted you to validate their supernatural experience, both of which is not your job.
Sure. Also, at least a couple of them wanted me to swear more. I noticed
that is
definitely that, which I tried. I was starting to get so riled up, and every time I would get almost riled up, you would just agree with me. I was like, oh, okay. I guess that was over.
I do think that you probably thought that I was going to be a little bit more like, no, Brad.
Right. I was ready. Real. I was like, I know we agree on most things. I wasn't expecting like a huge fight, but I was ready for like a little bit of a fight. But instead, I would just say something, and you'd be like, "Yeah, no, that fair." All right. Which was fun. It was fun for me.
It was. I mean, Brad, there will definitely be things later on in this show's history as well as our friendship.
Sorry, I just got Mitra showed up, so we gotta cheers, Mitra. Thanks.
We gotta cheers, Mitra. She's here. That's the best thing.
And everyone else, Anna and BJ, Nick.
BJ's here, Nick's here, Gary's here, Anna's here. This is wonderful. This is just wonderful. We're talking about stuff tonight. It's gonna be a fun night. It's gonna be a fun night. Oh boy, isn't that wonderful, Brad? When you can poke a friend, just randomly, just be like, "Hey, I hope you're all coming tonight, especially you."
Right. It would be interesting to find out if Mitra even knows that she was supposed to be on the first episode, according to the promos, because that's what you kept saying for some reason.
She never showed up,
even though neither of us invited her.
Yes. We will have
and then she didn't show up. Go figure.
Yeah, that's on her, right? It's an open invitation. If Mitra can get in the room, she's the guest.
It's true. We could make that happen at some point. I think that would be interesting.
Well, I think having a guest here would be very, very fun, but I think we would have to be a bit more prepared.
Never mind then. Don't worry about that.
A lot of I want to say thank you to everyone here in the chat who is here. As always, it's great to see people. Brad, you and I could talk about this. We could do this with nobody here and we would still have a good time, but it's always nice when we have people here enjoying us talking about stuff.
BJ is already getting into it. Coke is better than Pepsi. I mean, whatever. It's both dark sugar water to me. It's fine.
Yeah. I'm much more of an RC fan, if I'm being perfectly honest. I enjoy the RC cola.
It's fair. Yeah. RC is good stuff. I tend to avoid cola is pretty low on my list. I would go with a Dr. Pepper for sure.
I'm gonna say
anytime. I'll go with a root beer a lot of the time too. Root beer is good.
Root beer. Oh yeah.
There's nothing wrong with cola, but I don't care nearly enough about it to like fight about Coke versus Pepsi.
I in general am just not much of a soda person. When I worked in restaurants, I would drink a ton of soda because that was the thing you got you through. You know, but these days I don't really need to drink soda. I don't know. It's just not a thing. If I go to a restaurant and they've got a root beer, we'll go to a pizza place and they got a root beer on tap. Very, very good.
You know what's really good though is the fake cola and fake Dr. Pepper in a soda stream. And you mix them together and you make it into one bottle. That's the stuff.
That's very, very good. Brad, do you have, and this is not a question I want to ask you. This is not part of the bit. This is the thing. This is my ignorance about what sort of technology you have in Canada. So here in the States, when you used to go to a restaurant, you used to be able to go up and there was be like the Coke, there was like the Coke machine, and you can be like, cool, I want to have like this Coke product, but I want this flavor in it, and then I want this added on. So I could say, cool, I want Sprite, but I want vanilla Sprite with a little bit of orange in there. So I wanted to taste like a creamsicle. Did you guys have that in Canada?
Some places, yeah.
Some places.
Not everywhere by any means, but yeah, they definitely exist.
Okay. I just don't want to
like movie theaters and stuff. They would have a lot of that.
It's a big movie theater thing. Yeah. Coke Zero is. How do you feel about Coke Zero?
Ambivalent about Coke Zero. I don't care. I wish I had a stronger opinion about it, but just whatever.
It serves
nonsense. Yeah, I mean, whatever. It is what it is.
It's a vessel. I think it's a very, very good vessel that way.
Sure.
Brad, last week there was no crazy political thing going on, but there was a big news story happening that we decided to sleep on. We decided to completely ignore the hot topic, the hashtag hot story going on. That you, not directly, maybe you do have some direct connection to it, but Brad, do you want to talk about stonks? Do you want to talk about
talk about some hot Reddit stock tips?
You want to talk some stock tips?
Yeah. So I guess last week-ish, Reddit got a little bit crazy. They have a lot of like sort of stock and financial subreddits, but one in particular,
there's a lot of crazy subreddits.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy subreddits of all kinds, but there's a bunch that are dedicated to like stock related things. And one of them noticed that a hedge fund had very, very massively shorted on GameStop stock, assuming that it was going to be tanking.
Yeah.
And so they thought it would be really funny because it was fairly cheap if they could just get a whole bunch of people on Reddit to buy some GameStop stuff.
Right? It's cheap.
And boost it up just to fuck with the hedge fund because that's Reddit sort of MO about things. And it worked very well.
Very, very well.
To the tune that they've now been bailed out, I think, by 2 or 3 separate larger investment firms for like billions of dollars. I don't know what the current limit is. The last article I read said 2.75 billion, but I think there might have been another one after that. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And the story today and most of this week is the 2 hedge funds are now sort of shifting the shorts around to try and devalue it to make the Reddit, people scared. And the whole, again, if you're on the TikTok, if you're on the Twitter, everyone's saying, hey, if you got GameStop, hold. Just make them wait because they're going to be paying interest because that's how they're losing the money. My question for you, Brad, you are in your life, you are a bit of a day trader. You do a little bit of that?
Sort of. I'm not like super active, like many trades a day, like some people do. But yes, I make essentially all of my fund money on the stock market.
I
mostly
know that
sort of medium-ish term things, but when there's a lot of chaos, sometimes I do get a little bit more active just to try to get a little bit extra out of it.
I remember a distinct moment where I think I realized how not serious, but how good you were, where you were upset that you had taken a nap and realized that you had missed an opportunity to make some bucks.
during the holidays, there's a lot of chaos in the stock market. So there's a lot of money to be made. And unfortunately, I took a nap and I lost like $6,000 or $7,000. But I made it up. It's fine. It's awkward, but it is what it is. It was an expensive nap.
It was an expensive nap.
This GameStop stuff is so bonkers because now even like Robinhood, the trading system, like completely shut it down for a little while where you could only sell. You couldn't buy anymore, which was not necessarily great. But it did cause a really hilarious Twitter interaction between AOC and Cruz.
Oh, so good.
Where AOC said, that was bad, and they would have to look into like what the deal is there and what has to be done. And Ted Cruz agreed with her, and she essentially told him to fuck off and go back to his corner.
Trying to overthrow the government.
You don't get to agree with me on this. Fuck off. so good.
What is interesting about Robinhood is Robinhood was already insolvent back in December, right? This is a company that is continually making boneheaded moves like this, that is not able to pay on its premiums, is not able to actually let people cash out. Even the people who bought on Robinhood, if they wanted to sell, they're not able to get that money back for another 60 days because Robinhood doesn't have the money, right? It's not a hedge fund. It is an intermediary that is essentially kind of funneling short-term loans from other larger medium-sized hedge funds into larger hedge funds.
Yeah, and they have a very interesting business model where they don't charge the traders money, right? Because they're making money on the interest of the money that is sitting in their accounts.
Exactly.
Which means when a ton of people want to buy something, they don't have that money sitting there, so they can't. That's what they got to shut it down, even though that's not great, and that shows a very big hole in how their system works.
I also believe, Brad, and again, I'm not a law scholar, but I do believe that is deceiving the people who are using your platform. And I do believe, and it is my hope, that there are people in the new U.S. Congress who are going to be looking into this because it is pretty fucking gross.
It's pretty whack. Yeah. I don't know. I don't use Robinhood. Can't use it here, so I don't know what the user agreements or any sort of contracts or anything. They've got to be legally covering their ass somehow. That's part of their business model essentially, right? So there's probably some fine print somewhere, but whether that's legal or not is very fuzzy.
Yeah,
and I'm not a lawyer, especially not in the U.S. where it's this case. So I mean, who knows? But it definitely sounds super sketchy.
Super sketchy. So, Brad, my question for you is, I find the whole day trading stock situation very, very stressful. Viscerally makes my stomach go, I get no enjoyment from it. But I'm also not a gambler. And I think that's the difference. I think people who do this, there is not, and I'm not calling you a gambler, but there is sort of this let's put some money down. Let's see what happens with it, right?
Sure.
What for you allows you to do this and not lose all your hair and stress and do coke off of some lovely, a Saskatchewan, miner,
Well, mostly it's because I leave a very large chunk of it in much more stable long-term investments, and I only actively play with a much smaller amount of my money to try to beat those long-term investments, just to try to goose the levels a little bit.
And those
so I don't necessarily work if all of my active trades somehow completely crash tomorrow, that would be really annoying, but it wouldn't make me have to sell the house and move into a cardboard box or anything.
Well, that's good. I'm assuming your active trades are in probably mech suits, intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Sure. Yeah. Anything that lets me escape Earth is good right now. It's going crazy.
Yes.
Personal protection stuff. Yeah. Armor suit, Iron Man style.
Iron Man suits, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Anything like that is great. I mainly do tech things just because that's sort of my background. So I'm more familiar with the companies involved and more comfortable with the longer term potential progression of some of those companies. So I don't have to worry about the minute to minute, it went down 7% in the last 10 minutes. Do I have to sell everything? Oh my God, what do I do? I don't deal with a lot of that. Thankfully.
Yeah. When you got a good tech company, you can be all right, cool. Unless some major shift happens, right? If you were to, let's say, November 2019, say, you know what, I got a couple $1,000. I hear this company Zoom might be going public soon. Why don't I invest in that, right? That's a sure bet. That's a very, very sure bet in terms of where that's going. Yes.
Yeah. So it's definitely more focused on that sort of at least medium-ish to long-term growth stuff rather than really active. I wasn't taking part in any of the Reddit meme stock things. There was a lot of money to be made. Some people got really rich. There's still going to be a lot of people that get screwed in the end, probably, because there's a lot of people holding stock that will be worth less.
Yeah.
If they hold on to it. But if it screws a hedge fund, they might consider it worth it. So it depends on what the motivation is.
What's so funny is the fact that they're now comparing these Redditors to they're the next Occupy Wall Street, and I'm like, no, that's not what this is.
No,
that's not what this is. I know that sounds good for a sound clip, but that's not what this is.
If anything, it's just showing how busted the system is. And even though I use that system to make money, it's a fucked up system in many ways. It's totally messed up.
Well,
and things like these bailouts is evidence of that. Like, oh, Reddit screwed over a hedge fund. What's going to happen? Are they going to have to go bankrupt or deal with the consequences of their actions? No, a bigger hedge fund will just bail them out and it'll be fine for them. Nothing changes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, great.
Yeah, so, money. Brad, here's my question. What is money?
What is money?
What is money?
Money is a really hilarious idea that humans came up with a long time ago.
Right.
To just torture each other, I guess. It's really dumb. Money is dumb, basically.
It kind of feels a little dumb. And I'm not trying to be a Luddite to say, boy, it's a lot better when I have a baguette and you have a hat. And you say, hey, if you give me 6 of those baguettes, I'll give you this hat. And I'm like, that's great. I want this hat. That's so nice. But that's not the way we can work, right? We can't live in a global economy and have a bartering sort of system still.
It doesn't seem very practical in many ways.
No.
But exchanging it for money is not that much better in a bunch of ways either.
No.
It's just different and more complicated.
It really is, right? I mean, I remember our first time that we did one of these, I just had so many questions for you about what's it like to be retired and not have to have sort of a job that you're like, well, I got to go do this because I need money or I need health insurance. But you also live in a country where your health insurance is provided. There are social systems there. So you have a very different natural environment or a job, and money, though it is important, is not so critical to your quote unquote success within the society.
Right. And one mistake, one accident, one random event isn't likely to completely destroy me financially. I mean, it could happen, I guess.
It could. Well, Brad, what do you have on board for us tonight? I've got a couple of fun things we can do tonight. Do you have something you want to try?
I've got a couple of things that I think you might have at least some opinion on, more than I have of Coke Zero, the very least. Okay. To start out, well, Kellen, I know you are at least somewhat of a fan of Doctor Who.
I am, yes.
And I'm wondering if you could tell me who you think the worst companion is of at least the newish.
Oh, okay.
And if you could convince me why it's not Rose, because I think it's Rose.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to talk about why Rose is not the best, but she's not the worst, right? I think Rose is a companion who is very unique because she is caught between kind of 2 doctors, right? She is this character who kind of comes along and falls in love with the first Doctor, and then the second Doctor comes and she's like, well, you are the same person, but you're a different person. And it is so heartbreaking to see her have to go through this because she, for all intents and purposes, she kind of is weaponized, and then she's kind of put in this sort of strange place where she can't really win. And so the fact that Rose gets, in some ways, deified, right, throughout all of what's going on with David Tennant's Who, right? She is so weird that I don't think she's the worst. I actually think Karen Gillan's companion character, which name escapes me right now, I find her to be the worst. I find her
Amy Pond.
Amy Pond, exactly. Yeah. I find her to be the worst because I think Matt Smith is fantastic, but all the stuff between her and Rory is just so drawn out and strange in terms of, well, she's in love with her husband, but she's willing to go with the Doctor, and there's sort of sexual tension between her and the Doctor. all of that is just so hard. And in my opinion, if they hadn't brought River in to Matt Smith's doctor, I think Matt Smith would have been the sort of underdog, least favorite of the new sort of stuff that way. Gosh, golly. I just don't know why people hate Rose so much. I really don't understand it. I know we were talking with other friends of ours who like Doctor Who, and they were like, Rose. I mean, maybe it's something since I've been watching Doctor Who since I was a kid, and when it came back, like Rose was such a different. She was so unlike any companion that the Doctor had ever had before, right? Sure. Like Rose essentially is this. Like, I'm trying to think about the American analogy of who Rose really is in the British sort of sector. Like, Rose is not the smartest. She's really kind of trashy. And the fact that her and the Doctor go and, meet the Daleks and the Cybermen and everything else, there is sort of this strange thing that I think us as Americans don't understand, because we just see Rose as this, attractive blonde person, but we don't really understand the cultural difference to be like, no, this girl's like from kind of not like from the projects, but from like not the best place. Right. And when we think about Doctor's companions, they're, erudite and intelligent and, a bit more.
Your Sarah Jane Smith type.
Exactly. With Sarah Jane Smith,
one of the older ones.
Exactly. But when she was on with Tom Baker, she was exactly that. Tom was the more sardonic, and Sarah Jane Smith was much more, sort of like plucky. That's more what the companions were back in then. They were much more plucky because, when you think about the first 4 Doctors, they're all these like, well, I don't believe in this. Tom's the first one who's like, let's kind of have some fun here.
It's fair, I guess.
What? So, Brad, let's make this a debate, though. Why don't you like Rose?
To me, it just felt like the writing of Rose's character, at the least, was aimed at explaining things to the audience in a way that was annoying to the audience. Yes. As opposed to just like part of the world. Like, it was very ham-fisted a lot of the time, which a part of it is because it was a reintroduction of things, and they were trying to get people caught up, which is fair enough because it annoyed me, but I get that it would not necessarily annoy some people that were newer.
Yeah, like when
Doctor Who.
Spoilers, but when Rose is compassionate for the Daleks, you're like, the fuck, Rose, what are you talking about?
Right.
They destroyed Gallifrey. Come on.
Right. So it felt aggravating to me as an audience member, but that seemed to be at least partially by design.
I think so. I absolutely think that it's by design. I just think that she just gets such. She doesn't have the fun. So
sure. On the flip side of that, in my mind at least, we have like Donna Noble.
I love Donna.
Last name, which I thought was great because it was the same sort of explaining situation, because she was not necessarily the brightest bulb of the bunch, but she was actively annoying to the Doctor instead of the audience, and that was fun.
Yes. Do you consider, when we're talking about companions then, Martha Jones is a sleeper companion who never gets the credit for how good she is, who never gets to do any of the fun stuff that the other ones do, like, because she is so kind of like, for lack of a better term, unsexualized, like she's kind of like, sure, you're kind of cute, but I'm more interested in exploring the universe. Let's get through this. Like, it seems that she kind of gets slept on as a companion that way.
Yeah, I think she got a lot more interesting when she wasn't a companion anymore, and she was
fantastic.
Her own unit thing, whatever, like all the extra adventures.
It's so good. I'm kind of looking through the other sort of companions. Gosh. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Clara, but I think that's just more her. I just didn't really get the appeal of her because they kind of tried to put her in sort of like a mystery. Who is she? Who isn't she? And I mean, I think maybe it was also I was, I was sad that some of my favorite doctors were coming to an end, and I thought Peter Capaldi was fantastic. And the current doctor is absolutely fantastic, but I can't separate her from episodes of Black Mirror that she was on. That's my problem right now, is she's on a really great episode of Black Mirror, and I'm like, I don't trust this lady because she's in an awesome episode of Black Mirror.
That was one of my problems. Capaldi was great. I very much enjoyed him as the doctor, but I kept expecting him to swear, just random profanities, because like all of his other stuff pretty much has been extremely profanity heavy until becoming the doctor. And then of course, that's not a thing on Doctor Who, so he's not.
Yes, and that's in my mind. I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm just waiting for him to be just say the to everybody, just rip someone apart with his words.
That would be like an amazing Christmas special or something. Yeah, just rip someone apart. But I don't think that they would allow that to happen, unfortunately.
Well, Brad, I have to say, I think we both know who the best companion is, though, right?
Sure, it's K9, right? I mean,
I love me a K9. I love K9.
Sure,
but Brad, it's Captain Jack. He's the best. He's the best companion.
I mean, Captain Jack is the best everything. I don't even put him necessarily in the same category. He's his own thing. And he sure will have sex with anything that moves.
Anything, even K9.
Sure, anything. Brad, as long as K9 is into it. He's clearly very strongly into active consent. He's
very into active
consent. But if K9 wanted to have at it, I'm sure he would be game.
Yeah. Brad, this actually flows perfectly well into the next segment I wanted to do, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Sure.
Brad, are you you're familiar with the physical action that you need to take to reproduce human beings, right? You know what that is? That's
cloning. Sure.
Cloning. It's like cloning, but that's if you want to create the same act. This is if you want to take two sets of chromosomes and combine them together.
Like a Cronenberg sort of the Fly situation
thing. I guess I hadn't really thought about sex like a Cronenberg movie, but maybe it is.
I mean, kind of
is. Brad, are you kind of familiar with the Kenzie scale? Are you familiar with that?
Sure, yeah.
Perfect. And I'm gonna intersect the Kenzie scale with something else. Brad, are you familiar with a Japanese card game company called Nintendo? Are you familiar with?
That sounds familiar. Familiar. I think I could probably come up with let's see. I think this looks a little something. They make this kind of thing.
They made that system right there, and also.
I've heard of them.
Brad, in the mid 1990s, there was a company that was working with Nintendo called Game Freak, and they made a little game called Pocket Monsters that I guess some people were very interested in.
Sure.
So, Brad, I want to this one right here. Can you see my screen, Brad? We got to make sure the audience can see this too. We're going to hide this. Brad, we're going to walk through something right now. Would you fuck with Pokemon?
All right.
This is a very scientific test that I've created so we can learn about your sexual kinks via the medium of Japanese video game for children.
Seems like a totally non-problematic way to learn about that.
I mean, Brad, it's the Kenzie scale. That's what we're really learning about right now. So let's start off. Let's start with the baseline of what you find sexy. So here we are. Traditional, very easy to understand, cute. Love those cheeks. Kind of androgynous. Kind of it. So this is kind of your basic sort of idea. We're not sure if it's a boy. We're not sure if it's a girl. All we know is that they're ready to party. Would you fuck this Pokemon? Or would you fuck this Pokemon?
Now, see, does Pikachu have the voice of Ryan Reynolds in this?
No, unfortunately not. This is the traditional Pika Pika.
See, that would have sold it for me probably, because that would have been hilarious.
I understand. So we have a Swabble on the right. Those big eyes. Again, maybe a little scared, not really sure what he's getting into, but as we can see with that tail, he's a grower, not a shower.
Sure. Well, I mean, Pikachu looks a little more enthusiastic about it, so I guess I'm going to have to go with Pikachu.
It's those red cheeks. That's the thing. The red cheeks are telling you, they're telling your brain, I'm ready.
Sure. Okay. And I mean, think of the electro play. I mean,
exactly. All right. Well, round 2. We're going to kind of look at a Manny Pixic Dream Girl situation with Meowth here, right? This is, look at those eyes. Meowth can actually communicate with you, right? Despite the fact that Meowth might be a little sort of sassy, Meowth actually can speak English as opposed to most Pokemon, which is just them saying their name.
It does make consent a lot easier.
Makes it a lot easier, Brad. Again, it's the classic, like, hey, I just want to hang out and listen to music and just have a great time with you. I'm going to write in my journal, just Manic Pixie Dream Girl situation with Meowth. Or do you want to fuck this Pokemon?
So I got to cut you off right there. I'm not fucking a psychic Pokemon. Nobody needs those thoughts.
But here's the thing. I mean, Brad, like this is the emo, Mr. Darcy of the Pokemon, right? This is the situation, right? This is what we're dealing with right here, right? Of these two Pokemon, do you go with the one who's going to easily break your heart because they're going to find another love the next time a butterfly goes by their head? Or do you deal with this headache son of a bitch who might be the best lay of your life because when they can unlock this.
That is true.
Right?
You've convinced me. I'll go with Psyduck.
Excellent. Okay, round 3, Brad. Where do you think we're going so far?
I have also, just to, only know the names of the ones I remember from Detective Pikachu. I'm not a Pokemon. So far, I'm okay.
You're okay.
A decent grasp on it.
Well, Brad,
a little dicey.
This is an 8-round quiz, so we're going to see a lot of different Pokemon. Perfect. So, Gengar, dangerous.
Sure, the bad boy of the crowd.
The bad boy, right? Do you want to deal with this, right? Sort of a ghost type Pokemon, a dark type Pokemon. Look at this. This is the sort of guy or gal who's going to take you home and push you up against a wall, and you're going to think for a second, did I make a mistake? Right?
Sure. I could see it.
Dangerous. Or do we go with Slowpoke? This sub just needs you to be the Gengar, right? Are you the Gengar of the relationship, or are you the Slowpoke, Brad? You can be both at different times in your relationship. Some days you wake up as a Slowpoke. Some days you wake up as Gengar.
I think I would have to go with the Slowpoke on that. That long prehensile tail,
Brad, I think you made the right choice. And just look at this, just
a little toothy, maybe.
A little toothy and just begging for it with the tail up that way, right? Just
absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So we're about halfway done at this point.
Sorry, I don't know which one talks like Danny DeVito.
That would also be Nick. That's very good. That's also Detective Pikachu. Thank you very much, Nick. We're gonna get into some role play stuff, Brad. Here we have a group of Pokemon, right? Sure. 3 lovely red-nosed dig trios, blonde, ready to mingle, right? This is the key party situation, all right?
Sure.
Or do you go with this freak? Yikes. Sure, these 3, very surface level, they just want to talk about having fun. They want to do some coke, smoke some weed on the beach, have a good time. Big Taylor Swift fans here. This person's going to push you to a level of your sexual experience that you didn't know was possible, right?
Sure. And not very talkative, right?
Not very talkative. It's silent. But guess what this guy does? Mr. Mime, he commits. He commits to the sexual experience.
I think weirdly, I'm going to have to go with Mr. Mime on that.
Mr. Mime, okay. I like it.
Blonde potatoes.
Yes, the big trio, it's, there's something about the 3 of these, though, some people, they want more. Just look at those hands. Look at these hands right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Brad. Where do you think we're going next?
I am afraid to even think about it, Kellen. I don't know.
Brad.
Oh, God.
Do you like them thick or do you like them thick?
Yeesh.
Brad, we're talking about, do you want something you can grab onto, or do you want someone who's going to...
The chat is really into this. I guess.
I had to turn the chat off. I can't see what chat is saying. I absolutely can't. And again, this one wants to please. Again, this is just a lovely round bottom, wide-eyed friend who wants to just be wrapped up in your arms. And guess what? This boy, this girl, they're here to fuck.
Sure. I do like them thick sometimes. We'll have to go with the thick boy and or girl. I'm not sure what the...
Snorlax? You don't know Snorlax?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Snorlax's deal is, but I'll go with that.
And I don't think Snorlax knew either.
Fair.
So, Bram, we're going to talk a little bit about some gender bending here, right?
Sure.
We're going to talk about this idea of what does it mean to be trans, right? Here we have a lovely Pokemon who, for all intents and purposes, could be from anywhere in the world, right? Maybe this Pokemon is from some exotic land, or maybe they're just from New Jersey, right? We don't know, but what we do know is that this Pokemon is like an exotic spice, a spice you've never had before, and you're not sure if that's a fake mustache or not.
Right. It does look a little fake, maybe, but it's hard to say.
Fake. You've never seen someone with birds for arms and a Devo hat, right? You're not sure what's out. What again? This person could actually be very, very good sexually for you, but you're not sure because the way they're presenting.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Or do you want the vanilla? It is what it is. Do you want a big pink licky tongue that is here for you? Which one do you want? Do you want the mystery, or do you want it is what it is?
See, I tend to prefer to be the tongue in the relationship, so I'll have to go with the mystery one, I think, on this one. Whatever that thing is, we'll figure it out and see what happens.
This is my son's favorite Pokemon, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, birds for arms can't be better.
Brad, we're almost to the end. Sometimes, Brad, you need to find some new horizons, right? You're not really sure. Your sexual experience is getting maybe a little dull, and maybe you need to spice some things up.
Good old-fashioned key party.
So like a good old-fashioned key fob, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, that's the thing, Brad. This is everything you need. Keys go in, keys go out, right?
Sure.
This could solve a lot of problems for you. Or maybe this is what you need. Maybe a round, wide-eyed Pokemon that is going to sing to you and put you to sleep, right?
Not bad.
Maybe. See, this is the part of you that says, I want to keep sexually exploring my life. This is the part of you that says, I actually wouldn't mind 9 hours of sleep.
Right. I could use a nap, actually.
I could use a nap. And Jigglypuff's going to get me there, right?
That is true. I don't sleep very well quite often. That would be handy, but I don't know how sexually fulfilling it would be. I think I'm going to have to go with the keys just because I haven't had sex with keys before. So,
there we go.
I mean, gotta try it once, right?
This is good. This is good. Here's our final round, Brad. And Brad, as with all Pokemon, we're eventually leveling up. We're evolving our sexual practice. We have to get to some legendary Pokemon.
Of course.
So do you have sex with this? A space snake who can travel through time, who destroys memories, and is here to haunt people's nightmares? Sure. Or do you go with this god? Do you go with the bad boy who's never going to get over the first person who broke their heart? Or do you go with this creature, 4 legs, no arms, lots and lots of money?
Well, Kellen, I mean, when someone asks you if you want to fuck a god, you say yes.
So yes, right? You say.
So I'm going to have to go with the god one.
Perfect. Excellent. So let's calculate your total here.
Okay, good.
We're doing some Carry the two. Okay, interesting.
As
Oh,
far
so
as
this is who you identify as, Brad. Here we go. So you're Milky Tank, a freakishly sexy creature who's willing to do anything and anyone to get that sweet, sweet attention you crave. I mean, Brad.
I mean, I've gotten less accurate results from quizzes before. That's
Right, this is better than anything you would have found on BuzzFeed in 2010.
Absolutely. Well, fair enough.
Well, that's been my presentation.
That was a thing that happened.
Yes.
Whatever that was, it was interesting.
Whatever that was, it was interesting.
Chat seemed to like it.
Chad seemed to really like it, actually. Oh, thanks, Brad. I've had that sitting there for a little while. I'm glad we finally got to do that.
So funny.
Isn't Brad a demigod? That's a good one.
There's in a whiskey group thing. It's a thing. Complicated.
Excellent.
That was a long time ago, I'm sure. My demigod license has lapsed by now, or however that works.
Nick, if you need, I will actually share this link. Let me see if I can get this. Yes, they can be a viewer. Anybody can. Here we go. This is for anybody who wants this at home. That's Merriam-Webster verbose. That is not the link I was looking for. Excuse me. We're going to get rid of that.
Figure it out.
Well, if anybody wants the definition of verbose, that's where it is. Oh, I'll put it someplace. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll get it in the description when the thing comes up.
Oh boy,
Kellen, I have a question for you.
Please, I'd love to answer.
I know you are a fan of movies, both watching and creating at times.
Yes.
And writing movies is tricky.
It is.
And sometimes you end up with weird plot holes or things that are complicated to explain. And sometimes you care enough to change something to deal with it. And sometimes you just release the movie anyway.
Yeah.
Right? What would you say is the movie that you can think of that has maybe the biggest or most ridiculous plot hole?
Oh, Brad, that is such a oh boy. The first thing that came to mind, and this is such a stupid movie to think about it, is Twister. There are so many times in Twister where there's a hurricane, where there's a there's a twister around them, and they're on their phones and they're doing stuff. There's so many times where it's like, but this doesn't work this way.
Right. It totally defies reality in every way.
It just doesn't. It doesn't work, right? That's not a good answer, but it's the first thing that came to mind. I mean, Brad, I struggle because I think when I was spending a lot of time writing, I really got to that point where I was like, well, that's a plot hole and that's a plot hole. And you can take a magnifying glass to any movie and be like, there's the plot hole, there's the plot hole. But that's not what movies are for. There's not like a perfect movie that doesn't have any plot holes. There's plenty of cuts and edits where it's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Golly.
Well, let me ask you a related question that might think. How useful do you think Indiana Jones was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade?
He's Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is in my opinion the second worst Indiana Jones movie.
Sure. Because
he barely does anything. He's in the way the whole time. He, as opposed to in Raiders, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and even in Temple of Doom, which I think is a movie that people don't give enough credit. Temple of Doom is so fun, right? It's so fun. It's just this perfect little thing. And it's not the world. It's just this little capsule, right? But
agreed.
When I watch Last Crusade, it's great to see Sean Connery. It's great to see all this, but it's the same sort of fan service that everybody who complains about Rise of Skywalker, it's the same sort of thing. It's all these well, here's this, and here's this, and here's this, and here's this. But no, I don't think Indy does anything really good in that movie because he's hanging out with his dad the whole time.
Sure, but even to a literal sense,
Oh.
How would the movie be different if he never showed up?
Oh, the movie would be fantastic if he never showed up, because you know what? The Nazis would have gone and they would have gotten themselves killed, right?
Exactly.
The problem with that movie is that he's the one taking them to it. And it's the same thing with Raiders. He is the one who's taking them to the Ark of the Covenant. And if he had just been like, I'm going to stay and teach and have sex with my co-eds who keep coming to my class, he would have been a much better explorer. But instead, he takes the Nazis to the thing that they want, and then the Nazis kill themselves because that's what they want. But that's a whole Spielberg trope in general. There's a lot of plot holes in Spielberg movies, except for Jaws. I don't think there's any definitive plot holes in Jaws, because I think Jaws is pretty, and this is not a boat pun, but it's pretty airtight, right? It is
Sure.
it's pretty contained. The source material is very different from the movie. If you've never read the book Jaws, it's really, really fun. It's a great book to read during the summer. Golly. There's a lot of plot holes in Minority Report. Now I'm thinking about Spielberg movies. There's a lot of plot holes in
Spielberg is kind of notorious for.
Yeah, like Spielberg is such
like as long as it sounds cool, like let's do it, even if it doesn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah. But I mean, I just think that there's just like, that's fantasy movies in general, right? Like you can't. Like there's so many things where it's like, if it's not a plot hole, it's a Deus Ex Machina, right? It's a thing that just like, well, rather than ignore it, we'll put a thing here and that does it, right? I'm thinking about, and again, this is what happens in the books of the Tolkien novels. Like I'm thinking in Return of the King, where Aragorn shows up and he's like, well, I'm the king, and suddenly I've got all the ghost pirates with me, and then now they got all the ghost guys, right? Here's the Deus Ex Machina that allows them to overcome stuff that is like, yeah, you got a 3.5 hour movie, and I guess you got to wrap it up, right? I get it. Tolkien's got 3 books. He's going to be like, well, I've set them up. I got to figure out something that's going to get them in. It can't be Gandalf because we've already tried that, and it
Right.
can't be dragons, and it can't be this. So I guess it's ghosts, and that's what we're going to do. So, do you have a movie that comes to mind? Is there something you're thinking of?
I actually have, weirdly, the reverse. A movie that a lot of people complain about a gaping plot hole that I don't consider a plot hole at all.
What's the movie?
Independence Day.
What's
People claiming that making a virus to affect the alien mothership makes absolutely no sense, even though it's completely established that all Earth technology, essentially from the 50s, is based on that alien technology.
Exactly. And but you can't say, oh, that doesn't, you can't look at that little slice and say that doesn't make sense, because then you say, but what about the aliens?
Yeah, no, it's one of the least ridiculous things in the movie. But I've seen like constantly people making that as like, oh, it's the biggest nonsense. I was like, no, that's like the one part that makes sense.
It's fine. And they sell it again. They sell it so well. I mean, there's so many things in Jurassic Park that are the same way, right? Like I think that's maybe that chunk of time, and maybe it's just our age, right? Like that's just those are when the movies we watch, right? There's plenty of plot holes in Mighty Ducks, but guess what? I don't care. Right.
Sure. That's coming back.
It is coming back.
Which
that's
weird,
like somebody, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to dig into the plot holes of a Disney movie. I don't want to critically analyze some of these movies. I just want them to be right. Like when we start taking that magnifying glass to films, that just takes all the good out of it. Right. Let's, I don't know. It's tough, man.
I agree for the most part. Unless it's a movie like sort of specifically built around like a very concrete plot, like something like Primer. Plenty of people tear it apart because it's very constructed to attempt to look like it's dealing with all potential plot holes, and like that's sort of the point of the movie, is to be intricate and have a ridiculous amount of things that could be wrong, but they're actually explained. But unless it's a movie like that, I'm on board. I usually don't really care that much. But.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure there are plenty of, based on a true story movies that have plot holes because they're like, well, this was the true part of the story, but we still got to make this a movie, right? Like There are plenty of adaptations of things. There are plenty of movies that again, that's what makes it a movie, right? We're gonna take this story and we're gonna make it big. It's gonna be fun.
Right. What was that? Oh, was it Takedown? Maybe the fictionalized version of the Kevin Mitnick arrest. I think it's called Takedown, but I'm not positive. But it was made while Kevin Mitnick was in jail, waiting for his trial.
Yes,
and the trial is included in the movie.
Yeah.
So they just kind of, this is like real-ish. Oh, and then we'll just make up the trial that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
It's very strange. But it was still based on true events-ish. It's very strange.
Yeah. Brad, do you think there's such thing as a perfect movie?
I don't know. That's hard because entertainment is very subjective.
It is. And it's also the perfect movie today in 20 years is really, really weird. I used to think Annie Hall was one of the most perfect movies because I thought the performances were great and the writing was fantastic. Airborne is very good. I think Airplane is probably the most perfect comedy that's ever been done because that movie is so good and is still so good despite the fact that it's culturally inappropriate times and everything. It's still funny.
I'd say Ghostbusters probably comes pretty close.
Yeah, Ghostbusters is pretty good.
There's not a lot of faults that I can think of in Ghostbusters, but yeah, the perfect movie is a tricky thing just because it's so personal and subjective.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my favorite movies people hate, and vice versa, I'm sure.
What's a favorite movie of yours that people hate though?
My favorite movie of all time, Kellen, is a ridiculous piece of nonsense called Surf Ninjas.
I love Surf Ninjas. It's
the only movie with Rob Schneider in it that I can stand because every single person in the movie treats him like the jackass that he is the entire time.
How do you think Rob Schneider got in that movie?
I don't know. I don't have any idea. Everyone hates the character that he's playing. It's ridiculous. But yeah, the whole movie, everyone treats Rob Schneider exactly how I believe he should be treated.
Yes.
And that makes me laugh every time.
Mm-hmm.
But the movie itself doesn't make any sense. But
it makes no sense at all.
Super entertaining to me, but it's completely nonsensical.
Well, I mean, I guess that's the good point, right? Like when we think about perfect, right? We have to think about it. Well, it's high art, so it needs to be this, as opposed to like, well, what's a movie needs to have nothing else. It's entertaining. You want to watch it again. You want to have some popcorn. You want to have a good time.
And I think it's the only movie I can think of that had Game Gear product placement instead of Nintendo in the like prime Game Boy years.
So the Wizard had come out, and then Sega was like, "We gotta get a product in a movie."
Like it's like a serious plot device throughout a good chunk of the movie.
Right. Oh my god, you're so right.
It's so bizarre. It makes no sense.
Man,
Game Gear.
I gotta see if that is streaming and watch that sometimes. Maybe I'll watch that with my son this weekend and be like, this movie, this was good. And he'll be like,
so good. It's amazing.
Oh man.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure is really, really good. Oh, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is so fantastic. And again, to think about Pee-wee's Big Adventure in terms of being an adaptation after the HBO show, right? Like it's like, Paul Rubin had done that HBO show, which was a live show that he used to do in New York, and that was like an early idea. Like, great, we're going to adapt this theatrical show, sort of cabaret show, and we're going to put it on HBO, and it's a couple episodes, really, really raunchy and fun. And then to be like, great, Tim Burton watches this thing and be like, I want to make this movie, right?
Let's take out most of the sex jokes and sort of disguise the rest of them to make it, a family friendly event. It's great.
It's so funny because if you watch those original Pee-wee shows, it's so, I don't want to say sexy because that's the wrong thing to say, but it's so sex focused. I'm saying, man, Paul Rubin.
Yeah. I mean, sure. I feel you.
Miss Yvette, right? Have you seen Couchy? Sure.
I mean, even like after the movie with the actual kids show is weirdly full of things that you would not get away with these days.
My favorite joke from the original Pee-wee show is Pee-wee puts mirrors on his shoes, because he's really fascinated with women's underwear, because he's Pee-wee. He doesn't know that women wear underwear, and he keeps trying to look under Miss Yvette's dress, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm trying to see your underwear." And she's like, "Oh, Pee-wee, I'm not wearing underwear." And he takes it and he breaks the mirror. He's like, "Ah, darn it."
Yeah. That's the worst possible outcome of this situation.
I just wanted to see some underwear. It's so good.
It's good times.
Brad, I have a sort of a loose conceptual sort of thing for you.
Okay.
Brad, you have art in your home behind you, I see.
I have a little bit, yes.
A little bit of art in your home. Okay. Brad, what does the art in your home, what is the function of the art in your home?
That stuff.
Yeah.
Literally just functioned because I need something in the background when I was doing a YouTube whiskey thing. Mm-hmm. That's the entire point. All the walls are blank except for that one spot in the corner. Okay. But the rest of the art in the house is to please my wife because she wanted stuff on the walls. I am extremely functional and don't care. I do have an upside down map though that just makes me laugh.
Well, that's nice.
It's literally upside down, but all the labels are right side up because
that's very funny.
So that just makes me giggle. But that's really the only thing that I have up that my wife didn't because she wanted it.
When you, let's say, go to, let's say, a doctor's office or you go to an office and they have some art there, what do you think the point of that art is?
Probably to subconsciously soothe people or make them less aggravated in some way.
What do you
give them something to look at when they're really
something
bored.
to look at? Okay. So why does having something like a piece of art on the wall soothe people, in your opinion?
It's a good question. Oh. I don't know. There's got to be some interesting psychological reason, I'm sure.
No, I'm just talking about
I don't have that.
You don't have it. You don't have it. Brad, do you like going to like art museums and looking at walls where people don't live and seeing paintings or sculptures or anything else like that?
Really, no.
Have you ever seen a piece of fine art? And I mean fine art in terms of it could be a Caravaggio, it could be sort of a more contemporary, something abstract art, anything. Is there any form of fine art that we would call like capital A hard art that you would say that I like that right there?
There's some absurdist art that I could get behind.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Some pieces that you're willing to share, or just like in general, you're like, oh, I like Magritte, right? You seem like a Magritte guy, right?
I'm trying to think of a Magritte painting.
This is not a pipe, right? That seems like a very like.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yes.
That level of just sort of absurdist.
Yes.
Silliness, essentially.
The sort of the Dadas, that sort of thing. Your Deschamps, that sort of thing. That way.
Yeah. It's far enough away from functional that I can see it as like a fun thing instead of trying to figure out what its purpose is and not understand it, because it's probably just trying to elicit an emotion that I don't feel strongly enough to have an attachment to.
Is there something that you have, Brad, in your life that you think that serves as that function, or is that just sort of neurologically just something that doesn't connect for you then?
I don't know. I mean, like reading and stuff would serve a lot of that function for me. I think I don't have like visuals in my brain most of the time. So like looking at a visual piece of art, as soon as I look away, I can't picture the art in my brain. I can remember like enjoying it or not enjoying it, or even like kind of what it looks like, but I can't picture it. So it doesn't like attach to any sort of emotional situation at all generally.
So Brad, if I said, could you tell me the color of Mr. Mime's hair right now? You couldn't. You could be like,
no. Not a clue.
Nice.
I remember he has actual like 5 fingers because
He's
that's
got
weird
5
for a
fingers.
Pokemon.
Right,
But,
which is very strange for the Pokemon.
But yeah, the specific colors and stuff, not a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Pikachu is mostly yellow, though. I know that.
Mostly yellow.
From a lot of experience of.
I just think that it's so interesting about both of us, Brad, because I think constantly in imagery, right? I have problems, as you can see right here. I've got tubes of posters that I'm like, well, I got to go to the frame shop and I need to get these things done. Like I am constantly wanting to put and display artwork. I want to buy artwork. I want to do this. I want to go to a museum and look at artwork. I think about sort of self-expression this way, but I also have shelves and shelves and shelves of books that way. And I'm just more kind of curious for you, like what does either for you or how does art sort of serve a function in the larger society, if it does or if it doesn't for you?
For me?
For you.
I would say that type of art probably doesn't very much for me, but I can see it has a lot of benefit for plenty of other people. And so, it's so I would consider it a good thing overall because I know that I'm the weird one. Well, the weird. There's plenty of people I'm sure like me that don't care very much, but there's a lot of people that clearly do, and that's great.
Yeah. You got something for me, Brad? You got a question for me?
Let's see, what else do I have?
Yeah.
Kellen.
Brad.
Why do I don't know if this is a segue from this at all, but why do humans, I'll include myself in humans for the purposes of this question
as well, yes.
Why do humans create idioms that make no literal sense, even if the meaning of the idiom is great? I'll give you an example.
Give me an example. Yes.
I'll give you an example. Never judge a book by its cover is a great idea, right? You shouldn't judge people or situations by sort of the surface level things. But taken literally, the cover of a book has a single purpose: to judge the contents of that book.
Yes.
Why is that a thing?
Right? I think in some ways, and I think actually, Brad, this is a little bit more not even about humans. I actually think this is a problem with English, right? I think this is an English problem because I think English is such this sort of bastard language of German and Romantic and all of the other sort of languages that come in that influence stuff that, again, Hannah, perfect. Hair of the dog.
Hair of the dog.
What does that mean? The fuck does that mean? Hair of the dog. And when you say that someone's like, hey, a little hair of the dog, they're like, I'm not eating my dog's hair. I need some water and some scrambled eggs and some bacon to get this hangover to go away.
Okay.
I think English is so strange. And I think the way that English evolved as opposed to French or German or even Slavic languages or Eastern languages in terms of how, sort of Mandarin and Cantonese and Korean and Japanese, like there are languages that have been around for thousands of years, and there's English, which is like a language of trade, right? So English needs to be a language where you speak this language and I speak this language, but we use English to trade goods and services. So we use these weird idioms that made sense in German, and I guess there's sort of a translation in English, right?
Fair, I guess.
I also think that we, as I will say this, as Western English speakers, so American English, you probably speak more the Queen's English, right? You spell color the proper way.
the correct way.
The correct way. Yes. I think as Americans, because Americans and our language is so ever evolving and ever changing, that I don't think we question why we say things, right? I think having a kid, when I am having to explain things like, oh, you got my ear. I say, yeah, you got my ear. And he's like, what does that mean? And I have to say, yeah, what does that mean? Well, it means that you've got my ear. Like, I'm willing to listen. And he's like, well, why didn't you just say you're willing to listen? Why'd you say that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I watched some movies and some cartoons, and they would said that, and it imprinted here. Like, I think we rather than as American English speakers, rather than think about our language, we are performing a repetitive function where we see either intelligent people or attractive people or entertaining people use these phrases, and then we parrot them back, and we don't think about it. We're just like, hey, I watched Casablanca, and Bogart said this once, right? Hey, quit Bogart in the joint. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that means, but it sounds cool when I say it, right?
It does sound cool sometimes.
And that is what English is about. It is not about making sense. It's about sounding cool.
That's fair. I've never been great with a lot of sort of metaphorical language, unless it's like spot on. Like I am okay with like good metaphors, but there's a lot that just metaphors, idioms, all that kind of stuff. If it doesn't work in a literal sense very well, it sort of doesn't click the right part of my brain. I don't know. And it just doesn't necessarily trip me up because I understand the point of it, but it aggravates me in a weird.
Oh, Brad, I don't know how the two of us have conversations. I feel like that's all I do is I make bad metaphors and idioms. I feel like, when a horse walks into the ocean, not every dog gets its ball, right? Like I'm so like, right, you get it, right? Like it's the ocean's a metaphor for life. And we're the horse, but we're also the dog getting its ball. And the ball is what we want. But the ball is a trick, right? The ball is a lie.
Yeah. I can, in those moments, if I don't understand it, I'll just be yeah.
That makes a lot of sense why you're so quiet on some of these conversations outside of the show, Brad. You're like,
the more of these that we have, the more you will understand when I understand you and when I don't. And when I'm just trying to stall for time so that I can like process it through enough, like, okay, no, I can say a thing about that.
Okay, I think enough time has passed where Kellen's forgotten that he said that. Okay, let's move on.
Or I could just like process the language. Like, no, he couldn't have meant that. He couldn't have meant that. Maybe he meant that. Okay, I'll go with that. And I'll just say something. Yeah, so the more conversations we have, you'll find those patterns more and more, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate all of the patience you give me, Brad. I try.
Right back at you. I'm sure I am infuriating to deal with sometimes.
No, Brad, you're
when it comes to that kind of thing.
I just sometimes I'm like, all right, I have to think like, okay, Brad's really smart. You have to think really smart. Think like Brad. And then I'm like, what are ghosts?
It's a complicated question. Let's not repeat that process.
No.
Not yet. Not until season 3 of that stupid show comes out. We'll have to talk about that, I'm sure.
We talked about it all last time.
Yeah.
Brad, I have a polarizing question for you.
Oh, good.
Brad, why do people hate jazz? People hate jazz. People hate jazz.
There are people that love jazz.
And I love jazz. And when I say to someone, "Oh, I love jazz," they're like, "Fucking God, you motherfuckers, man! People like you are what make the world wrong, right?" It's like when I say to someone, "Oh, I love jazz," people roll their eyes at me so much.
Well, Kellen, I don't really know why people hate jazz. I could tell you that I don't care very much about jazz. But I don't care very much about most kinds of music.
Mm-hmm.
I like some like comedy music because it's funny.
It is
like songs with lyrics that are funny or interesting or whatever. Like I can get behind.
So you're a big Weird Al fan, a big Smothers Brothers fan, Tenacious D, Garfunkel and Oates.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. 3 Dead Trolls in a Baggie.
Oh, those are great, yes.
All that kind of stuff is great. But a lot of music, like, it's fine. I don't like hate it, but I just like whatever.
Fred, you know why people hate jazz. I understand you're trying to be really, really safe, but you know why people hate jazz. Why do people hate jazz, Brad?
Now I'm very curious why you think people hate jazz.
Again, Brad, I think you are intelligent enough to pick up on why people don't like jazz. or people don't like people who like jazz.
Let's see. Why would people hate jazz? I mean, I could think of some structural reasons why jazz is sort of on the outskirts of a lot of musical concepts that
Sure.
Maybe people are not so great with the looseness structurally of jazz. I don't necessarily define music in those terms personally, so it's hard to like define those differences, but I know that those differences exist.
Yes.
It tends to be a lot more, improvisational and stuff like that, at least certain kinds of jazz. But
you're not listening to the notes, Brad. You're listening to what's in between the notes with jazz,
Sure. So it's pretentious, is what it's the pretension.
That's why people hate jazz, is because of the pretension of this is a difficult art form to get into, and also I think people, there is a level of inherent racism that is built into jazz where people are like, I don't know if I like it,
Sure, I can see that, I guess. Yeah, I don't have a strong emotional response to jazz either way. I can't remember the name of the band now. It was a weird name, but they did acid jazz, which was a very strange.
Acid jazz is great. Acid is
I enjoyed that when I was very high as a teenager.
Yes.
But other than that,
Chicago actually had a lot of very experimental acid jazz. I mean, obviously, there's so much stuff that kind of comes out of the late 1970s that is so experimental, and that is what's interesting, is that form of jazz is the most polarizing, because it's like great, Dizzy Gillespie does a cocaine for a week and then decides, hey, I'm going to release an album that's just him playing 4 notes for 6 hours, and people who are into that are like, oh my gosh, look what he did, but everyone else is like, what is this isn't anything, right?
Oh, Jeremy's correct. It's the sax.
It's the sax.
They're all just jealous.
Yeah.
Sax, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's cooler than Kenny G, right? That's definitely an objective truth.
But you don't really like music, though, Brad.
I mean, I'll listen to music. I don't mind music, but it's
tolerated.
It's background noise most of the time.
It's the
unless I'm getting jokes out of it.
Brad, is music like Coke Zero to you? Is that what you're saying?
Sure. A lot of it. I mean, not all of it necessarily, but a lot.
You heard it here.
Some classic rock occasionally.
Name a classic rock song that you enjoy.
A classic rock song.
Name a classic rock song.
Lowrider.
Lowrider. Okay.
Maybe a little bit of a stretch, but Lowrider's good.
Lowrider. Lowrider is the first song that you thought. A classic rock song. You're like, you know what? If Lowrider comes on, I'm going to tap my toe a little bit. I like this.
You know why, Kellen? Because my brain connected what we were talking to getting high.
Yes, I was like,
from Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke. That's why those neural connections fired. Yeah, some old AC/DC stuff is good. Some Cheap Trick maybe, kind of stuff.
There is something really nice about getting very, very high and putting it on an album and just being able to just sit there and listen to an album. I used to do that, and it is I love that experience of just time traveling, of being like, boy, this music is on, and I'm just like, it's just washing over me again and again and again. But that's what I want to do when I'm in an altered state. I just want to sit and just concentrate on one sort of thing,
I tend to watch absurd movies like Rubber.
Oh, Rubber's great.
Or The Congress. That's another.
Congress is great. I like to sit in the math, get a little high, and watch anime. That's one of my faves. That's a very, very fun experience, because being high and watching anime gets you into the show so quickly. You're there. You're so in the show. You're like, God, what is Sasuke going to do in this situation? Right? Are he and Naruto going to get out of this? Right?
Have you watched Wizard of Oz with Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, I did. I grew up in a hippie town, man. I did that. I actually did that at a there was a laser light show at the planetarium where they did that, and that was it wasn't that it wasn't fun. It was kind of like yeah, I guess this thing is a thing, but it wasn't like the mind altering sort of experience that all of like the boomers who were there in the planetarium told us. Like, we were a bunch of 16-year-olds who were like, you guys are going to have your mind fucking blown, man. You have no idea what this is about to be. And at the end of the show, they were all asleep because they were, 45 years old. And I was just like,
So it's Kellen, 45, ancient, practically corpses.
Again, this is me as a 16-year-old. A 16-year-old in a small hippie college town being told by a 45-year-old that the Dark Side of the Moon, Wizard of Oz is going to blow my mind, and then they're asleep. I'm like, okay.
And 20 minutes in, you're like, oh, it kind of sinks.
It kind of, but it's not. I much better. If we're going to talk about that, one of my favorite movies. Here we go. Here's a movie, The Shining. The Shining is really, really close to perfect, right?
Sure.
And I got the pleasure of going to a theater here in Chicago when they did this, where they played The Shining forward and backward at the same time. Where if you played The Shining in its normal way, and then you take the same film and you flip it and you start it at the end, it was not intentionally done this way, but this is just what Kubrick does, right? He lines things up this way, and there's all these sort of moments where Nicholson is just being so crazy. It's just so interesting. And I saw that and I was like, this, if I was high when I was watching this, I would not believe that it was true. I'm so glad that I saw it sober.
Right. Because note to self, The Shining, frontwards and backwards. Okay, that's good.
It's very easy to find. You can find it on YouTube. It's great.
Okay.
Room 138. It's a documentary that's about all of the conspiracy theories about The Shining, about how Kubrick, faked the moon landing, and The Shining is his, mea culpa, letting people know that he did it. That The Shining is all about the labyrinth and about the Minotaur, and that the Shining is also about Kubrick dealing with the genocide of Native Americans in the United States and Canada. Like it is a fascinating documentary if you've never seen it before.
I haven't. Yeah. That sounds super interesting.
This is good. This is good entertainment. Me Googling.
That is
37.
Technically not wrong, but it's weird. Might be a topic for another day. If you look hard enough on the internet, I show up a few weird places. Let's put it that way.
Brad, if you Google
news clippings from the late 90s, random Twitch streams in Texas.
There's a lot of me on the internet. I feel both proud and embarrassed. There's a lot of me. You can find there's a lot of me. A lot of podcasts I was on. That's the thing when you're in a town where there's a bunch of comedians. All of us make podcasts, and we're all on each other's podcast. A lot of web series that I did. I'm on my Wikipedia page, Co-ed Prison Sluts. There was that. That's the longest running show. Here's Co-ed Prison Sluts is the longest running musical here in Chicago. I was part of it for very many, many years. Great show. Yeah, man. Fucking yeah.
Sounds like a fun time.
But maybe that's what we should do on 1 week, Brad. We just Google each other's names and we say, "Hey, Brad, what's this?" Hey, Brad, what's this?
I like that plan, and it frightens me.
Yeah. Hey, Kellen, what's this blog spot that seems to be a lot of your long-winded poetry?
Pornhub.com/Kellen has a lot of
that would be fun. Boy, if I could find those old videos.
Jeez. I don't want to find those. That's a whole other. We don't want to get kicked off of YouTube.
I think it's pretty hard to get kicked off of YouTube, Brad. I think it's very hard to get kicked off of YouTube. If we were on Twitch, then we'd have to follow certain sort of rules and other stuff like that. But, Brad, we've got about 10 minutes. What do we want to do? You got another question for me? You want to?
Do I have another question that's worth about 10 minutes of time?
To answer Carrie's question, yes, Carrie, I do sing. I can sing a baritone. I can kind of do a little bit of tenor, do a lot of musical theater, did some jazz stuff, a lot of chorus stuff. I played drums and I also sang. I was a double threat that way. I was not a fantastic drummer, but I was good enough at playing drums where I could also sing backup vocals. So that was nice.
Nice. Back in high school, I was good enough at about half a dozen instruments that I could fill in for sick people, but not good enough to really play any of them well.
That's fascinating to me, Brett, because when we were talking before about you being in band, there's a part of me that's confused about why did you enjoy playing music but you don't listen to music? Was it just the physical aspect of the action of playing music?
And all of the instruments are essentially very mechanical, like trombone,
yes,
tuba, very mechanical, very precise. Notes that I could just very easily understand the structure of and do it the same every time without having to be super creative as any,
I mean, that's what's nice about bands. It's like there's no creativity. It's like, nope, play it this way.
There's definitely audio of me in school band playing the theme song to Inspector Gadget that exists. I played the tuba in that song.
Jenny Michelle says, I sound like I suck duck when I sing, so I stuck to band, clarinet, saxophones, and drums. That's very funny. I've never sucked a duck before.
I think that would be more about blowing in those cases, but except the drums, I guess.
It's very nice to see you, Jenny. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, Kellen.
You got for me, Brad? What do you got?
The internet never forgets, Kellen. We've sort of been talking about Googling each other, but the internet never forgets everything. But it does break eventually a lot of the time.
Yes.
Do you have any old websites or things that you used to use that definitely still exists somewhere, but you can't actually use because it's completely busted? Or anything that just literally doesn't exist anymore? That's rare, but it happens.
My brother and I had a MySpace page for our band that we had. My brother was living in South Africa at the time, and I was living here in the United States. We decided we wanted to have we wanted to make music just so we could connect because we weren't seeing each other very often. And we were also the sort of guys who we would start bands. Where I grew up in Eugene, Oregon, in the late 90s and early 2000s was the best place to be if you wanted to play music because there were so many people who were coming through Oregon and California and Washington that we would have big acts stop in Eugene and they would play a show, but they needed a lot of local bands to open for them. So if you were a local band, you could always open for big acts. That was not U2 or something like that, but moderate sort of acts, 500, 600 people, 1,000 people. And so we would always create these. We created plenty of bands that were essentially joke bands and fake bands because all right, well, we can get paid some money and do this. And so we just liked playing music. We had a band called Colorado Mountain Snake that we had on MySpace. We recorded all these just insane songs where he would send me tracks and I would sing over them, or I would send him tracks and he would sing over them. And we had a pretty cool MySpace following. And then one day it was all gone. And I know MySpace still exists. And I know that page exists because I get notifications in my email today that say, hey, by the way, this person followed you. And I try to figure out where that page is and I cannot find it.
That's crazy.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid. What about you? I mean, I know I have a live journal out there somewhere that I can't access.
So do I. I would probably be horrified to read whatever is on there, but it probably still exists. But I have no idea how to find my live journal. But the random example that I thought of as an ancient website for online mysteries whodunit.com.
Whodunit.com.
I guess technically it was who-done-it.com because it was the mid-90s and they did that for some reason. I don't know why.
Because Brad, people didn't understand how to read, right? You had to have the dashes or they won't understand what a website is, right?
Sure. So it was like an online mystery thing that you had to solve the murder of someone, and it was like interactive websites and all kinds of stuff. And like a bunch of it still exists. If you use the Wayback Machine, like you can find a month like in the late 90s, early 2000s, whatever, that most of the pages exist, but you can't actually like travel between them or do any of the stuff or log into the fake bank accounts that you needed to like do anything. So it's just completely busted. And it makes me sad. Because it was one of the first mystery things that I like solved as a teenager. I printed out all of the relevant things so I could like cross-reference fake bank nonsense, and it was a whole process. And now I can't like go and revisit that. It's just depressing.
It is really interesting to think about that time as the sort of LucasArts point and click adventures come to an end, and then that start all the people who used to love those like Tex Avery games and all of those sort of mystery solving point and click adventure games, and then they say, but the internet, we can do all of this online together. Right? I remember whodunit.com and felt very intimidated by it because I was like, people, this is like their whole life. This is what they're doing. I can't keep up with this. I'm trying to do any of this like that. I think the Wayback Machine is so interesting, Brad. It's a shame that you can't like put yourself there so you can interact, that you can be like,
right. There's just like too many like, I don't know, JavaScript things or whatever. It might have been Flash applets or something.
It probably was.
It might have even been before Flash. I'm not.
What was before Flash?
Yeah, it was clearly relying on something that no longer exists. Yeah. And so a lot of it is broken, but you can get some of the basic websites in a very broken format from the Wayback Machine, which is a very strange thing. And I thought that was fun.
We should definitely maybe not next time, but another time we should get in the Wayback Machine and find some fun old websites and just sort of explore some old stuff like that.
Sure. I bet versions of my first website are probably still on the Wayback Machine. That might be scary. I might have to try that before the show just to see. But
first.
But yeah, that would be interesting just to play with the Wayback Machine a little bit, go down a trip down memory lane, see what we could find.
Oh yeah, I'm sure I could go to a couple of like. I don't know how I got this gig, but I designed my middle school's first website, and it was nothing but the border was nothing but rainbows waving. It was so many assets. It took 15 minutes to load one page because I put so much shit on it. And nobody knew any better because they didn't know. I was just a kid. It was like, I'll make a website. This sounds great, right? And you're just.
I mean, that would load right up these days, probably.
Oh, these days you can get it loaded on your watch. You're fine.
Great. That'll be a lot of fun. We should definitely do it.
Yeah. Well, Brad, as always, this is the highlight of my week. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Been great, and ditto. And sorry, I don't care about art very much or music.
Brad, you care about so many other things, and we would not, Brad. If you didn't care about anything, we wouldn't have anything to talk about. And you obviously care about many, many things.
It's true, but it's always fun to chat with you.
It's always fun. I can't wait.
The chat room very much enjoyed finding out which Pokemon I would like to find.
I am so happy that the chat enjoyed it. I will make sure that we put the Google slide deck in the show notes so people can access it if they want to. Brad, I just hope you know that's not the first time you're going to take a quiz like that, because there's many other quizzes. We're not going to do it every week, but there are many quizzes that are like this, and I hope you enjoyed that because it's going to keep coming back.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely find or possibly create one specifically for you.
I can't wait.
All right. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brad.